independent, bring me happy. Ooh. Thank you, happy.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to A Captain's Log. I'm Bryan Kreutz, the ambassador to the Trekkies everywhere. That's you.
And I'm the co-captain of this ship.
What?
No, not really. I'm Lili Fox-Lim, Bryan's co-host on this vessel. And we're taking you through all the Star Trek news, shows, movies, lore, and more.
Yes, that's right, Lily. We have a great show with you today. So, whoa, what just happened?
Looks like we just had a huge power surge.
Well, if that's the case, it's a good thing for us that our guest episode this week is a former assistant chief engineer.
Oh, that's great. We're in good hands.
Yeah.
We're so excited to have actor, writer, director, and producer Kavi Raz join us for an exclusive interview.
Absolutely. Next Generation fans may know him best as Lieutenant Junior Grade Singh from the first season episode Lonely Among Us. Raz was the first South Asian Middle Eastern actor to appear as a regular in Hollywood TV series with his role on NBC's St. Elsewhere.
He's also had a profound impact on Hollywood with his production company, Kavi Raz Studios, having a hand in over 20 plus productions so far.
That's awesome. Very impressive.
So impressive. Kavi's had an amazing career in entertainment, but do you know what impressed me the most?
Oh, and what would that be, Lily?
Well, his athletic background, of course.
Yes!
Not only is Raz an accomplished soccer player, but he was also the captain of the U.S. national field hockey team.
Oh my God! And for those of you who don't know, Lily was a very tough lacrosse player and All-American? What?
Yes. But don't sell yourself short. Bryan was a force to be reckoned with in the rink playing hockey.
Maybe a little semi-pro
Semi-pro.
hockey? Sure, maybe we should all participate in a game of crazy squares, though.
I would love to, and I would kick. I don't think my insurance would cover it.
Okay.
Bring it on. This may be worthy of a raised eyebrow stump me. So give me the clue.
All right. That's my cue.
Your cue. Continuum?
Yes, the cue continuum. But be it let's go back a little bit to the 2230s. Starfleet communicators had the universal translator technology built into them, on their comm badges, on the uniforms. But they were limited on how many languages they could store locally. Now, how many languages can a communicator store, Lili Fox-Lim? I pose the question to you. Wait, did we stump her? Did we stump her for the first time?
Well, wow, you almost have me there. But, BK, but unfortunately for you, remembering the amount of languages a communicator can hold is the same as remembering how many songs the original iPod held.
There's just no getting anything past you, Lily with thrills. Lils with thrills.
That's right. No, there's not. My answer is a communicator can store 1,000 different languages.
Oh!
And what can I say? Linguistics, it's kind of my thing.
It sure is. Always a winner. Now, for those of you looking to expand more of your Star Trek knowledge, stay tuned for our exclusive interview with the one and only Lili Fox-Lim to answer your questions. But we're going to be interviewing Kavi Raz here today.
A Captain's Log returns in a moment.
Welcome back to A Captain's Log. Kavi Raz will join Bryan and I here in a moment for our last interview this season. Kavi is the first South Asian Middle Eastern actor to appear as a regular in a Hollywood TV series. He was on St. Elsewhere for 52 episodes from 1982 through 1987, opening doors to many who follow in his footsteps. He also founded KR Films in Hollywood, or Kavi Raz Studios, in 1978.
Yes, that's so cool.
What an achievement.
Absolutely. Now, Kavi Raz was a trailblazer and well-seasoned creative talent and appeared in 250 shows, more than 250 shows, TV TV series, films, major Hollywood plays, you name it.
Wow.
So we would love to welcome Kavi Raz to A Captain's Log. Welcome, Kavi.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be on your show, and I really thank you for inviting me and sharing some tidbits about my life and where I've been, what I've done, and so forth. Looking forward to this. Thank you.
Kavi, you were born in Punjab and left India at a young age. Your father actually served in the British India Army. Talk about your early days with the school, plus growing up.
I come from a tiny village in Punjab, India, northern India. It was so tiny, I think literally about 50, 60 homes at the most. A rural area, farming community. And I come from a farming community. Farming and serving in the army is a profession that the community of the caste that I come from, we excel in, often known as the warrior caste. So my father naturally served the British India Army, and he fought in the Second World War, the Burma frontier. And because of him having been in the army when India got independence, we got an opportunity to come to England as a family. So he was given a free visa to come to England. He was an officer in the British India Army. And so my early schooling, first few years of my life, in a rural school in India, in the village where we sat on the ground, no desks, no light, no running water. From that kind of environment, I was thrown into this English school system environment. Mr. Smith also introduced me to playing hockey, and we played hockey at that time on the school asphalt yard. And hockey sticks were basically very rustic sticks made out of wood, of course. And they weren't like regular field hockey sticks. They were just pieces of wood with a curve end. But it just got me interested in the game. And then, of course, it led to playing soccer, football, as we called it. He got me interested in sports. So those are my earliest memories of introduction into the British culture and my schooling there.
Kavi, talk about how you were able to get into the performing arts and ultimately into your first gig in Hollywood.
My first place where we lived in England was a city called Coventry. The Coventry Cathedral is world famous. That's the city where we lived. We lived there for a few months. And then the family moved to another small town called Leamington Spa. I excelled in school. I excelled in sports. And that's where kind of my life was centered until we moved to the United States. And the first few years, I was involved in education and, again, playing sports and stuff. And it was only after I graduated from university, when I was doing my master's at San Jose State University, that I got involved in local theater there in San Jose and Hayward, the town in the Bay Area. And that's when I decided, no, this is something I want to do as a career, even though I studied engineering, industrial engineering. But then I decided, no, this is what I want to do. Because it was I think it was so much an extension of what I was doing in the sports field. As a sportsman, you're always looking for attention. You want to be loved and you want to be appreciated. And there's a lot of showmanship involved in that, as you know. And I think this was just a natural extension of that, having that kind of a desire. And we become actors because we want people to watch us. We want people to appreciate us. We want people to love us. And I think it was a sort of a natural growth in that area. And I decided that if I want to do this, I got to give it full time. I have to take this as a profession that I must learn properly. Then I moved to Los Angeles, like I said earlier on, December 6, 1976. My journey began as an actor.
Nice.
Thank you.
Ravi, being on a Star Trek talk show, Bryan and I are, I'm sure, perceived as science fiction nerds and proud of it.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
We're both also former athletes at pretty high levels, myself in basketball and lacrosse and BK in hockey and baseball. Talk about your journey through playing soccer and field hockey. As I understand, you captained the USA national field hockey team. What?
Yeah, I barely missed playing in the '84 Olympics. And because they were held here and USA automatically qualified, even though as a field hockey playing nation, we are not that great. We don't rank among the top like 12 or 50, 16 teams. But that year, '84, we hosted the Olympics, so naturally we qualified. I was quite busy as an actor at that time. I was doing St. Elsewhere, and I was actually doing a film at that time during the Olympics called Warning Sign. And so I couldn't train with the squad. I couldn't even go up to the trials and so forth. Even now, when I talk about, sometimes young actors will ask me about acting, or I direct also on the set. They'll ask me about a certain scene, approach or approach to a character. I always somehow relate that to my life as in sports.
Mhm.
That how one would approach a certain thing in sports, you approach it the same way in building a character,
Mhm.
or building as a scene, or enacting a certain part, or understanding something. Because I always believe that sports, every sport is a very scientific sport, and there's a scientific approach to doing certain things in sports. And unless you understand that, you can't really do it. And same thing in acting. Unless you understand, you can't enact it. You can't perform. And so I relate those two things quite often. And that's kind of like, I think it's almost like a duality in my approach to everything in life, that I go back to that.
Oh, I love that response, Kavi. Acting is just an extension of you being frequently on stage, even in sports as well.
Yes, absolutely. Kavi, I want to ask you this next question. You started a theater company that would eventually bring Indian plays to American theater here in the United States. Can you talk about this process and how this came about?
I was studying acting at the Lee Strasberg Institute in Los Angeles, and the school was on Hollywood Boulevard. And of course, when you're studying, and especially being an actor from India, I really didn't know the approach. Like, what would I do next? So I had this teacher, Hattie Sontag. She was an amazing teacher. She was an ex-contract player at I think at Warner or Universal Studios at one time, when they had these contract actors. She was one of the last ones, and fascinating teacher. And one day we were talking in class, and I'm asking her, so I basically sharing my frustration that I don't know what to do. I'm studying acting, but I don't have a direction. Like, okay, I can get an agent and all that kind of thing, but I don't see anything out there for someone like me. And she said, "Have you ever read Rabindranath Tagore?" Rabindranath Tagore is an Indian writer, a poet, who has written a lot of naturally poetry. He's sort of like the Shakespeare of India.
Okay.
He won the Nobel Prize. I think it was 1936 or 32. I can't remember the year now. I said, I've heard of him, but I've never read him. She said, go read him. So naturally, me loving books and stuff, I went out to every single library in town, the Los Angeles Central Library, UCLA, USC, all the bookstores on Hollywood Boulevard. We had a bunch of them at that time. I'm buying books written by Rabindranath Tagore, checking them out of the libraries and so on, and started reading them. I had done some plays in the Bay Area, but I really didn't have a background in putting something together like this. And so it allowed me to introduce a lot of Indian theater to Los Angeles and to American audiences. So we would rehearse, put on these plays at various theaters, and then I would stand on Hollywood Boulevard handing out flyers that I would design myself. And hand designed at that time. Of course, we didn't have computers and stuff, and I would print them and hand them out to people. Go, oh, please come and see my play.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's interesting. It all came full circle, and you're here in Los Angeles. That's awesome.
So let's get to Bryan's favorite series, Star Trek The Next Generation. And one of my favorites as well, of course. I love handpicking out so many good episodes from this series to watch in no particular order. But if we start all the way at the beginning in 1987, you auditioned for the role of Mr. Data. Can you please tell us every single detail? and just how this came about with the audition?
I remember auditioning for it. And I think I went back three times at least, I remember. And it was, I was among the final two.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, I went that far. And I was so hoping to get it. It was one of those things that and it was at a time in my life and my career that I needed something like that. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And I thought I was so right for it as well. It was one of those things that I can do this. This is me. But of course, the producers and the directors and the writers probably, of the network thought another way. And Brent got the role, and he was wonderful in this, and playing the role. But it was not getting the role was quite a painful experience. I remember that. And I think, because I always think back, had I gotten there, maybe my career would have been at a different level, or I would have gotten different types of roles thereafter. I mean, financially, it would have been a pretty awesome gig too. So, and I remember walking back from my last audition through the Paramount lot, thinking, I'm feeling really good that I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. I'm going to do this role. But the laws of nature as they are, I didn't get it. So,
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Kavi.
So, Kavi, I wanted to ask you the next question. Do you watch Brent Spiner as Mr. Data on The Next Generation? And if you do you do any critiquing, considering you researched this role heavy, read for it in auditions, and now you get to see the role on screen?
Initially, when the show first came out, and I watched it, and I, of course, I think it's human nature. My thinking I could have done a better job than that. But Brent Spiner did a wonderful job. He's a great. He's pretty amazing in that role. It has this sort of premium sort of control sort of behavior, which is tough to pull off. And I still think I could have done a good job. I think I would have been pretty awesome in the role. Yeah. But then I reasoned with it and I accepted it. And it wasn't meant to be.
Kavi, you appeared as Lieutenant Junior Grade Singh, and Wesley Crusher, or aka Will Wheaton, fondly remembers working with you was very rewarding, seemingly learning more from you instead of schoolwork. So you send Wesley off to school and are in the conference room meetings with the main bridge crew as the assistant chief engineer in the Star Trek Next Generation episode Lonely Among Us. Talk about your memories playing this role.
As Singh, I only auditioned for it one time.
Okay.
It was just one audition, and again, walking across the lot, thinking I'm going to be perfect for this. As an actor, you need to tell that yourself. I'm going to be good for. I'm right for this. And then there was another actor, an Indian actor who was in town at that time, pretty big star from India. As I'm walking towards the casting office, he's walking from the casting office, and we cross paths. We were friends. We say hello to each other, and I'm like, he's a much bigger star at that time. And I'm looking at us, and I'm going to get this. He has so much more experience than I do. He's done so much bigger projects than I have. But then naturally, I did get it. And I don't remember much about the audition because it was such a short audition. I just went in there for a couple of minutes, and as soon as I got home, my agent called me and telling me that they offered me the role, they gave me the role. It was very exciting. It was just awesome. I remember going on the set, and I had been on some pretty amazing. St. Elsewhere itself was a pretty amazing set. The whole show was shot on set at CBS Studios in Studio City. But Star Trek set was pretty amazing. I mean, I remember going in there, walking in there, just being awed by it. I'm like, wow, it was simple, but it was something that I didn't expect. So that was my first experience, just walking in there. And I'm walking around the set, just looking at the set. And I did another film that had a pretty awesome set too, called Warning Sign. And so I'm always fascinated by sets because I love to build things. Mm-hmm. That's one of my hobbies. I do things with my hands and stuff. So when I see a set built that beautifully, that nice, it just fascinates me. So that's one of the things that my memory that always sticks out.
Kavi, did you have to convince the director Cliff Bull that you wanted to do your own solo stunt scene in engineering when you're electrocuted with your hands and then on the console flipping around to your death onto the warp core edge? Tell us about this scene in Lonely Among Us.
Actually, I didn't have to convince him. The stunt coordinator asked me if I could do this and this. He kind of like walked me through it from what I remember now. Mm-hmm. And I just did it because I was naturally pretty fit at that time physically, and I loved doing physical stuff. And so just one thing kind of, led into another. They just accepted the fact that I could do this. And that's how it kind of like happened. I didn't have to convince the director to say, oh, let me do this, But it was great that I did it. I got to do all that. It's always nice, if an actor can physically do to a certain extent, as long as it's safe. It makes it. I mean, you feel a little bit more with the character then, because you're going through the experience yourself as an actor.
A captain's log returns in a moment.
Our guest, Kavi Raz, owns Kavi Raz Studios and KR Films here a few miles over in Hollywood. This is what you were referring to a little bit earlier, Lily. Mm-hmm. Now, the studio is a full-fledged production and distribution company engaging in the production and distribution of content in the theatrical and digital domains, like the film Sarabha, which I believe is a true story of the beginnings of India's independence movement, which I believe this is a question you eventually want to ask Kavi.
Ooh, right? Yes, it is, yes. It is. But first, okay. Let me just ask. Okay, so Kavi, I'm sure playing a doctor was fascinating. Talk about being on St. Elsewhere, this hit NBC network television show as Dr. Vijay Kochar.
It was my first experience playing a major role in anything. Prior to that, I'd done a couple of small things. And here I'm thrust into this environment with some of the most experienced actors in Hollywood. Bill Daniels, Norma Lloyd, who just recently passed away, and so many other amazing actors. Denzel Washington, who became a superstar. Mm-hmm. It was even though I studied acting, I went out and got a master's in theater arts as well from UCL and Cal State Los Angeles. So I thought I was well equipped as an actor, well trained, but learning from all these people, learning on the set. And I was absorbing everything. Some wonderful directors who would come in, and Thomas Carter, who directed the pilot episode, the first episode, even though the series was over 13 episodes going in. Just learning from them, watching them. And I wouldn't go to the dressing room in between scenes. I would just sit on the set watching everybody. So it was a besides having this wonderful gig, it was also a learning experience for me as well. And playing a doctor, learning all those big words. I had an engineering background, but in the medical field, it's a little bit different.
Now, Kavi, last year you released a film titled Sarabha, set in the early 1900s about the Ghadar movement that took its roots on American soils and had a young leader who valiantly stood up against the British rule of India. Can you please tell us about this film?
Yeah, it's a true story. India's independence movement actually started right here in the USA, and to some extent in Canada, on the West Coast. In 1913, the early arrivals from India, some of them came in the late 1800s or early 1900s to work in the lumber mills up north and in the farms in California and Washington. They realized coming to America what freedom meant. India was under British rule for over 200 years up until then. They realized that the value of freedom by coming here to a country that was free, and so they banded together and formed this organization called the Ghadar movement. Ghadar basically means revolt, armed revolt. To go back, their dream was, their mission was to go back to India and overthrow the British government and throw them out of the country with an armed revolution. So this film is about that. The beginning is about that.
Let's go back to 2017, Kavi. You're a Los Angeles-based Indian filmmaker, writing and directing a film set in India and the UK as well, but it's titled The Black Prince. It's a film that revolves around a young prince attempting to both regain his throne and reconcile with two cultures of his Indian birth and British education. Now, is there a form of background that hits home in this film for you, Kavi?
Naturally, I can somewhat, not at the level. He was actually a king of Punjab, the last sort of surviving kingdom in India before the British took over. Mm-hmm. He was the last king of Punjab. Punjab was one of the most powerful kingdoms in the world at that time, before the British took over. His father passes away, and there was no really a proper heir to the throne. And he was only 5 years old when he was put on the throne. And basically as a puppet of the British at that time, because he was so young. And then the British took him out of India, took over the kingdom, brought him to England. I think he was 15 when he was brought to England. But the British really took over his life at the age of 7. I came to England, when I was about 8 years old as well. So there was a lot of this that relatable sort of parts of my life as well to his story. But he was still like a slave under the system. And when he realized that he was actually a king and had a kingdom, he wasn't, the only surviving member of his family was his mother, who was exiled to Nepal at the time. And he wasn't allowed to see her for like 14 years. When he finally connects with her, and she is the one who reawakens this in him that, hey, we had a kingdom, you're a king, and you need to reclaim your kingdom. You need to fight against the system, not live within it. And so that's when he raises his voice and wanting to go back to India. And his struggle against the British begins. I wasn't, even though I lived in England, I wasn't aware of this story to the detail that I finally began to realize when it came about that somebody wanted to make a film on this, and it came in my lap, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I started reading up on Maharaja Lili Singh, that's the central character, and how the demise of that kingdom came about, and his struggles and so forth. I found it fascinating. It was sort of in some ways relatable to my own journey. Coming from a small village, coming from the state of Punjab, and I still sometimes think back. Had the British not taken over Punjab and destroyed that kingdom, I would have come. I would be from a different country, not India. I would be from the kingdom of Punjab, and which was a powerful kingdom at the time. My makeup would be different as a person. My history would be different than what it was. So that's the kind of approach I took to making that film. I'm fascinated by Indian history. I'm actually fascinated by history in general, but especially Indian history, especially history from my part of the world. Mm-hmm. And that film was about that part of that history.
Kavi, we both had some quality time with you this week on A Captain's Log. Whether it was Star Trek The Next Generation or your upstart successes in Hollywood, you have and still clearly offer our world a colorfully vivid and creative platform. This has been such an exciting half hour.
Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed it has, Lily. So happy we were able to have Kavi on with us. He's such an interesting individual on so many levels in acting, writing, producing, and directing. And we're very lucky to have him here in Los Angeles.
Bye for now.
Hello, happy, my old friend. I'm glad you've manifested yourself into a human I can depend on to bring me happy.